Hey everyone, welcome back to Matt and Cat Things. I'm flying solo today, so I apologize that Cat's not around. In this video series, we are attempting to pour concrete countertops on top of our IKEA section cabinet system. Go back and look at episode 1 and you can see where we assembled some cabinets, we got them installed, and we began the process of shoring up the weaker spots in the cabinet so they'll be ready when we pour almost 800 pounds of concrete on top of them. As a reminder, this is not an instructional video on how to do this step by step all the way through. It's really just designed to show you, the steps that we took to overcome some of the design challenges working with concrete countertops and the IKEA section cabinet system. There were some challenges, we worked through them. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not, but this is how we did it. In this video, in part 2, we're going to show how we built the top system, what goes on top of the IKEA cabinets to receive the forms for the concrete countertop system. It's a multi-step process. There's some heights that you have to take into consideration. So that's the main thrust of this video. Also, in the end, we're also going to go over all the parts and pieces and tools that I bought either from Concrete Countertop Solutions at Lowe's or some stuff that I had laying around. Perhaps the hardest thing I've had trouble explaining in this series is why we're building this up anyway. And you'll see in the video that IKEA cabinets are different in the sense that I don't know if you'd call them technically frameless, but the doors go all the way to the top of the base cabinet. So any surface that lips down in front would not give the right clearance for those doors to open after. So you'll see in the video, but that's probably the main thrust of why this buildup is necessary. So I guess we'll just get to it. Take care. All right, I think I've finalized the base system that I'm going to use to build these cabinets up to the right level so that these forms will go on. With IKEA cabinets, with the section cabinets, this metal bar that we talked about having to shim up, it raises the edge of these by 1/16 of an inch. And again, if you were to put a solid surface down, none of this would matter. But since we're pouring a liquid product, we want to make sure they don't sag. So this is the 1/16 material that I talked about to shim up in between these. So what I'll do is I'll probably use some spray adhesive and attach those to the tops of the cabinet. Next, because the backer board, the 1/2-inch backer board is actually 3/8 thick, I've next put down a 1/4-inch piece of plywood to get the proper final height. And I'll bring these up flush with the front. When I set them in place, I'll make sure that I've got these all the way up and here. And then the last piece will be what they call the 1/2-inch hardy backer board, which is 3/8 thick. Now you notice it doesn't go all the way to the end, and we'll talk about that when we start putting the forms on. So this gives us the height we need. And if you look at a cross section, this form will now attach down to this, screw down through this, and when it breaks away, it'll give us the clearance we need on the top of the cabinet. This might be a better look once this is all down on how this system works. This breaks away. This pour allows there to be a lip in front of the cabinet and extend it out. These are some other IKEA cabinets that I have in the mudroom. But with the doors and drawers installed, what you can see is that these doors go all the way to the top. A lot of cabinets, there'll be a piece across the front and the door will only go about this high. But because IKEA cabinets, the doors go all the way to the top, that's why building this up is so important. You've got to have room after the countertop is on for these to clear, to pull out. Like I said, even after you shim up to get the total of 5/8, you still have a couple spaces in between there that need to be built up. I don't know if they need to be built up, but I'm just going to take the time to do it. So I found this old piece of, it's like a fiberglass board. I think it's for shower surrounds, and it's a perfect 1/16 thick. Cuts pretty easy, so this is what I'm going to use right here. So I'm just using this laminate blade. I think it's a down cut blade. Cuts through it pretty clean. I'm sure I went a bit overboard, but I put some silicone down on this plywood after I put those shims on and put some weight on it. This 1/4-inch plywood little cup, it's really thin. So just to make sure that my next layer gets to sit nice and flat. I put some weight on it. Here's a piece of the cement board or hardy backer board that you use to go on top of your cabinets and attach your forms to. Now, as far as cutting it, you can use a carbide tip knife that allows you to just score it and snap it like you would a piece of drywall. My problem is that it doesn't leave much of a clean edge. And bigger than that, when you have to do finer work, like adjusting for this out of square corner, it's hard to snap that off. So I went out and bought a blade for my circular saw designed specifically for fiber cement. So we'll see how this works. Make sure you dress the part for this job. Here's a look at the other cabinets where I've dry fit all the layers. And what you can see that I tried to do, for instance, I've got a seam on my cement board here standing on top of two cabinets coming together, but I've staggered that with a plywood seam here, especially in the sink cabinet. I still have to cut a big hole in there. But everywhere around I've staggered the cement joints and the plywood joints. First, we're going to show you all the pieces that we ordered from Concrete Countertop Solutions. So first we'll start with the forms. I'll try to go in the order that we use them. These are 8-foot forms. You can see the profile. This allows you to pour, filling your front edge. The next piece is this rear form. This is how you do the rear against your walls. This piece is a sink form, and we'll show you this in more detail later, how this works. To attach those forms, they sell the right screws. Once you have all your forms down, you're going to use these ladders, which will screw down into the top. And what they'll do is support this fiberglass mesh, which will give you your internal strength. Next, you'll be drilling holes and using these plugs, and we'll go over this in more detail, for your faucet knockouts. And then you start mixing concrete. So for each bag they send you, you get this fiberglass mix. Or each bag of concrete you use, you'll use one of these bags of concrete mix. And then you're into the pouring. So what's next will be the tools. First is your screed that you'll use to smooth the concrete initially. Then a magnesium float. small trowel for some small trowel work. And then a steel trowel for finishing. There's also this vibraform that you put on the end of an oscillating tool, and you basically vibrate the edges to get all the air bubbles out. I've never used this, but this is some sort of trowel slick. It's supposed to make work in the trowel and the concrete easier. We'll see. And lastly, from Concrete Countertop Solutions is this sanding pad with diamond pads. This is expensive, but they're flexible so you can do rounded edges and the like. A couple more important tools that I needed to have, but I bought at Lowe's, was a 1/2-inch drive cement mixer and a proper cement mixing drill. Well everyone, that's about enough for this video. In the next one, what we'll do is we will focus on installing the forms that hold the concrete in place, and also the mesh, you know, same stuff you would use in a regular concrete pour, like rebar. This has like a mesh system, so we'll get into that next. Y'all take care. Bye.